At this time, I'll call to order the June 7th meeting of the Town Council of Smithfield. At this time, I would like to ask Councilman Scott to lead us in the invocation and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come tonight, Lord, to do business before you in this community that we're so proud of, and we're honored to be part of the decision-making for this community, Father. We pray that you help us make the best decisions that reflect the future for all those people that it affect. Father, we pray that you'll be with the sick, the ill, the injured, and those that are unable to be here tonight. Just keep them safe in your watch. We ask all this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilman Scott, for that. We have the agenda in front of us. There are some known changes to the agenda at this time. Adding item number 10 to the consent agenda, consideration and request for approval of the Johnson County Mutual Aid Agreement for Fire Protection, and to remove consent agenda item number 6 and add this to business item to be number 4, consideration and request for approval to adopt year-end budget amendments and encumbrances. Also, we're going to add a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A5. Any other changes at this time?
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion, we approve the agenda as amended.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, we have 2 presentations. The first presentation is the Town of Smithfield Proclamation recognizing Juneteenth, June 19th, 2022. Whereas, news of the end of slavery did not reach the frontier areas of the United States, in particular the state of Texas and other southwestern states, until months after the conclusion of the Civil War, more than 2.5 years after President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1963. And whereas on June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas, with the news that Civil War had ended and the enslaved were free. And whereas African Americans who had been slaves in the Southwest celebrated June 19th, commonly known as Juneteenth, as inspiration and encouragement for future generations. And whereas African Americans from the Southwest have continued the tradition of observing Juneteenth for more than 150 years. And whereas Juneteenth celebrations have been held to honor African American freedom, history, and heritage, while encouraging self-development and respect for all cultures. And whereas slavery was not officially abolished until the ratification of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States in December 1865. And whereas the faith and strength of character demonstrated by former slaves and the descendants of former slaves remain an example for all people of the United States, regardless of background, religion, or race. And whereas the town of Smithfield is committed to promoting diversity, racial, and cultural harmony. Now, therefore, I, M. Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the town council, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth in the town of Smithfield, North Carolina, and urge all our citizens to become more aware of the significance of the celebration in African American history and in the heritage for nation and town. Signed, M. Andy Moore. All right.
Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem.
Absolutely.
With that being said, I'd definitely like to invite everybody out to Smith Collins Park. This is going to be the second year that we're going to be celebrating Juneteenth in Johnston County. So it's definitely an inclusive event. We want everybody to just come out, have a good time. We're going to have a parade from the Coach Reginald Ennis Pavilion down to Smith Collins Park. And then it's just a day of inclusiveness. You know, we want everybody to come out and, you know, just get to know each other, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. We don't forget our past, we move on, but, you know, we all understand together. So I invite everybody to come out to Smith Collins Park. We're actually going to celebrate on June the 18th. The 19th is that Sunday, is Father's Day, so we're going to, you know, let everybody do their Father's Day thing. So I definitely like to invite everybody out. And also I'd like to thank the town council, Mayor Pro Tem, for recognizing Juneteenth here in the town of Smithfield. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lee. At this time, I'm going to move forward to our second proclamation. At this time, I ask David Stevens to come up to the front, please. David, how does it feel not to be working tonight?
Well, I think y'all got a little bit on your plate tonight than we usually do.
Yeah, just,
But, you know, if Andy were here, I'd be kind of looking down a little bit, and I'm glad you're here.
yeah, let's
Leave us
just,
alone.
almost eye. So at this time, I would like to read this proclamation in honor of Councilman David Stevens' service to the town of Smithfield. Whereas the mayor and town council of the town of Smithfield wish to acknowledge and express its appreciation to David Stevens for his dedicated service to the citizens of Smithfield as a member of the town council for the past 4.5 years. Whereas David Stevens has served as a council member representing District 2 since taking office in December 5th, 2017. And whereas these years of service have been marked by dedication to the best interest of the entire community. Whereas David Stevens has reviewed and deliberated all matters, facts, and proposals before the council in a fair and sound manner, at times keeping the best interest of the citizens of the town of Smithfield as a first priority. And whereas the town of Smithfield has been fortunate to have had the services of David Stevens, who has provided leadership and rendered good judgment for the betterment of all the citizens of the town of Smithfield. And whereas David Stevens' distinguished service to the town of Smithfield deserves special recognition. Now, therefore, I, M. Andy Moore, Mayor of the town of Smithfield, along with the members of the town council, express our sincere appreciation to David Stevens for his service to the town of Smithfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Exit stage right.
Thank you for everything. And now at this time, we will also present you the key to the town of Smithfield.
Wow, thank you. I bet nobody in my family ever thought I'd get this.
I guarantee that. Got a few little things you need to say?
Yeah, I'd like to. if I
Oh,
would,
good.
please.
Perfect.
I need to take up some more time. I mean, y'all's agenda is so
We have
little
plenty of
tonight.
time tonight.
And Dr. Barber isn't here, so that gives me another 1 or 2 minutes. I love that guy. I'm just kidding. I can't even read what I wrote down. 4 years ago, I came here to the council, and there was a little bit of turmoil, you know, a little bit going on. Probably didn't need to happen, and talking about putting a 911 station over by the schools, and things got me riled up, and people got me riled up. Tim Johnson's not here, and several others, but I think after 4 years have come and gone, I've come, and it's the day that it's happening, when I'm leaving, and what's on the agenda is town changing. And I got my nephew on the town council now, who's the youth of Smithfield. And it's kind of like the old guard and the new guard, and it happened today. And if you're from Smithfield, you know what I'm talking about. Because maybe after today, things are not going to be the same. For a good better, probably. Because we've been needing it a long time. But it's just kind of how it, from when I got here to we're on the precipice of the largest growth we've ever had. And bigger and better things to come. And to be honest, we got the right staff and the right council to do it. And then I was proud to be a part to get here. And thanks to you guys. That's all.
Trim as, I'm not as trim as Andy. All right, next we'll move to the public hearings. This is for the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we have our public hearing on our annual budget that will take place and begin July 1 of this year and end June 30th of next year. This public hearing is grounded in statute. It is a requirement for the town to have this and to seek any input anyone would want to provide on this budget document. This is the manager's proposed budget. It is not the final budget. The council has not yet approved this budget, and I believe we will continue to have some additional discussion after tonight on this budget. So what I will present to you tonight is the highlights of this budget. I encourage anyone who wants to get into the detail of it to go online at our website. It is on our front page. You will find the entire document there, and you can go through it line by line and word by word and dollar by dollar if you like. If you develop a question, feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to explain to you whatever you don't understand or you have a question about. So, budget highlights. We're balanced in all three funds. Our main three funds are the general fund, the water and sewer fund, and the electric fund. You can see we almost have $16 million of revenue coming in next year that we anticipate, as well as a balanced budget, that same amount in expenditures. The electric fund is almost $16.1 million, and the water and sewer fund is close to $10 million. The property tax rate remains stable at 57 cents. That's been unchanged for over 20 years. Our electric fees and charges also remain the same, and our water fees remain unchanged. The sewer fees currently remain unchanged. However, that's contingent on what the county does. Since we have our wastewater serviced by the county, they are talking about increasing their wholesale rate. So if they increase their wholesale rate, then that proportionally would get passed on to the customer. If we find that out, usually the county will enact that change on September 1st. So we'll have a few months to figure that out. Sanitation increases have increased by 45 cents a month, and that is strictly because the county is increasing their sanitation fees at the dump, at their facility. So that trickles down to everybody else. That comes out to 45 cents per customer. We're not increasing revenue to the town at all with that. That's just paying for the wholesale increase that the county is providing. The general fund balance remains above 25% fiscal policy requirements. It also includes necessary capital expenditures, general fund and American Rescue Plan funds of $1.7 million. The electric fund has about $766,000, and the water and sewer fund just under $500,000. Employee benefits and medical benefits have remained similar to what they are now. This budget also calls for a salary adjustment for all employees equal to 2% on July 1 or about July 1, up to a 3% merit increase for performance on or about January 1, and longevity is being added back in as a benefit for employees that have more than 5 years with the town. Major capital expenditures, police department, we have 4 police cars at $191,000, and we're currently expanding their building for future growth, and we anticipate that that will be completed in the next fiscal year. The fire department has a replacement heavy rescue truck costing us $875,000, $38,400 in turnout gear, and $40,000 in SCBA mass and regulators. Public Works has its annual street resurfacing. That's our POW bill money. That's money that's provided by the state of just under $290,000 next year. And we have a replacement sanitation truck at $217,000. Some of you might have been aware we did have some problems earlier this year with sanitation running a day late because we had trucks down. So this is going to take care of that problem. Street Department has a new 61-inch mower. And Parks and Recreation, we purchased land out Highway 210 for a new soccer complex 2 years ago. This 210 Partif grant and grant application will help bring that to fruition. That's $37,500. We have to repair the concession stand at Community Park. That's $30,000. That's actually a new roof plus some other structural repairs and a new Ventrac mower deck. The Schrack needs a new boiler. The cost of that's actually $140,000, but we split that cost with the school, so it's $70,000 for us, and the school pays for $70,000. And the Sarah Yard Community Center, we're going to repaint the floor there. It costs $3,500. Other major capital expenditures for the water and sewer. East Smithfield water line improvements is $400,000. That's new water line in East Smithfield. Water plant expansion improvements, that's currently ongoing, and we anticipate that to be completed in the next fiscal year, like the police department expansion. I&I reduction, we have $200,000 set aside to work on our existing sewer pipes. That is our waste water pipes. If they get a crack in them when it rains, water seeps in, and then we have to pay to treat that water. So this helps identify those cracks, saves us money, not having to treat things that aren't sewage, like rainwater. We have a lift station repair at $150,000. We're expanding our water and sewer next grid system, our automatic metering at $300,000. Water line upgrades just throughout town at $100,000. We are budgeting $75,000 for a dump truck. That's only half the cost. We'll budget the other $75,000 next year, and we'll purchase it next year. So we're not acquiring debt for it. In the electric department, we are working on a voltage conversion continuation. This is an ongoing thing. It'll be ongoing for several years yet, and we have $450,000 set aside for that. We also are still working on our next grid system in our electric, mostly for commercial businesses, and we have $100,000 to add to those meters and installation of those. This budget does not include any new personnel. We'll be working with all the existing staff. We're not reducing anyone, but we're not adding anyone. We also are not acquiring any additional debt in this budget. We are paying off the Schrack debt. Hopefully this evening. That's one of the items that is on the consent agenda, is to pay that debt off. And that'll save us about $165,000, $166,000 by paying that off early. We have a sanitation truck that we have a loan on. That will be paid off next fiscal year as well. And our first debt payment for the water plant expansion, which is about $670,000 a year, is budgeted in this budget. We have $680,000 reserved in the general fund for implementation of a salary study that is currently underway. We have $105,000 reserved in the water sewer fund for the same thing, and $105,000 reserved in the electric fund for the same thing. That doesn't mean all that money is going to be spent, but it's sitting there in a line item, and it will require council approval to move forward with it. Again, no change in the tax rate. We're going to be forced to increase the sanitation fees by 45 cents a month per customer. Electric rates are unchanged, water rates are unchanged, sewer rates are currently unchanged, depending on what the county does to us. And there's no capital asset transfer. That means we're not taking money from another fund like electric or water and sewer and moving it into the general fund. Everything is staying separate. So the fees you pay for electric are going to electric, they're not going to police officers. Future issues, we all are well aware of what the pandemic's done to us. The sign that we're all here tonight actually having a public hearing is a good one. 2 years ago, we weren't able to have this. We were able to broadcast it on Facebook Live, but we didn't have an actual meeting for everybody. So we're doing better. But we've got some other issues too. We've got fuel prices that are going out of sight. We've got supply issues. We've got an economy that is not doing as well as we'd like. So this budget takes those things into account as best we can with the information we have today, realizing that this is a very fluid situation. We also recognize that residential growth and economic growth is coming to Smithfield. We already have seen some things. You can drive out 70 and see the Amazon plant and construction that's going on out there, but there's construction going on in other areas of town too, out on Buffalo Road, and you have 5 public hearings tonight, most of them talking about other growth that's going to be happening. Our property tax comparison, you can see throughout the years from 2017 to 2021, we have continually gone up. So we are growing and we are receiving more property tax. That's not because we've raised the rates, because they've remained the same. It's because we have more property to tax. Sales tax, you can see in 2022, we jumped up quite a bit over 2021 and 2020. That's, again, the rebound from the COVID stuff. Our sales tax did a lot better than expected in 19, dropped off a little bit in 20, and now we're back where we should be at a little over $3 million. Now, sales tax doesn't all come to Smithfield. A lot of people think we have the outlet centers, we have a lot of business here, a lot of sales. We should really be doing well on sales tax, but that's not the way it works. In the state system, in North Carolina, all of our sales tax revenue from the entire county, us, Clayton, Selma, all the communities, gets thrown into a big pile. It all goes to the state sends it back to the county takes the lion's share, and then it's divided up by city by how much value all your property is. So if another community has more value than us, like Clayton does, then they would receive more sales tax revenue than Smithfield does, even though maybe more money actually came into. So that's a little bit of an issue because we have to provide police and fire services for all these things, but our revenue doesn't match that. Fund balance comparisons. You can see the red line is our electric, the blue line is our general fund, and the orange line on the top is our water and sewer fund. They have continually gone up. The water and sewer fund was at 140%, and that was by design. That was because we were saving money to put towards the water plant. You see that drop because we're now doing the water plant expansion, so we anticipated that money to drop off. But as you can also see, it's still well over 100% at the end of the last fiscal year. So we're still very strong in all of our fund balances. This is our general fund allocations. I know this is a really messy pie graph, but if you want to take a look at it later, it identifies by percentage every single department in the general fund and how much is going there. To break that out a little bit, our public safety, that's just police and fire, takes about 44% of our entire budget. Our public works department, that's our streets, that's our appearance division, that's our sanitation, takes about 21%, our stormwater as well. Our parks and recreation, that's including the SHRAC as well as the other parks, the physical parks, that's about 14% of this budget. Our debt is only 3% of this budget. We have very low debt. Our contingency is 2%. That is about where it's expected to be. Those are monies just set aside for unforeseen circumstances so that we don't have to dip into fund balance to get things done if something runs over or we have an emergency like a hurricane or something else that takes place. Non-departmental is 10% of our budget. Those are departments that aren't part of us, but we donate money to. And all other things in town, all the other administrative things, the finance, the planning, everything else accounts for only 6% of the budget. So that's that pie graph that you saw earlier, that's how that breaks down relatively simply. The water and sewer budget breaks down like this. You have 61% is actually the water and sewer distribution. The water plant only accounts for 26% of that budget. It's got 10% debt, and that's because of the water plant expansion loan that we took out 2 years ago that we're just now starting to make payments on. And then we have 3% of contingency in that fund. The electric fund is similar. There is nothing else but electric in that fund. It's all there is, so it accounts for 96% of it. You have 2% contingency and 2% debt. So very low debt in our electric fund, which is one reason that we're able to keep your electric rates, residential rates, lower than anybody else in the county. And that includes Duke Energy. This is a table of this is all the debt that the town has. The first section is general fund debt. You can see a couple fire engines on there. The Smithfield Crossing project is the biggest one. That was where we added the roundabout and that whole road system over by what would be south of the outlet center. And we have a couple other vehicles on there. The garbage truck that you see second from the bottom there is the loan, $165,000 that gets paid off in this next budget. The water and sewer fund, you can see the $12 million loan there for the water plant expansion. That's a 20-year loan. And then we have a couple other a little bit smaller loans, but they're still over $1 million, 10-year loans for water and sewer projects, as well as we did a big ice and sand removal project back in 2016. The electric fund only has one loan. That is for the new transformer out on Brogdon Road, and that's paid off in 2027. That was a $3.5 million project. And that is what we're using to do all this voltage conversion throughout the entire town that I talked about earlier with that $450,000 that's in the budget. That is the presentation that I have for you. That's the budget that is the manager's proposed budget in a nutshell. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Mayor, or
right.
Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. At this time, are there any questions from the council for the manager? All right, if not, are there any questions or comments from anyone in attendance tonight? Okay, not seeing any. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. At this point, I don't feel quite ready to finalize the budget at this time. We still have a couple departments that we have not had a chance to review in detail. If it suits y'all, we can go ahead and discuss when we want to discuss this in the future. I know there was a poll sent out earlier today where several people responded. And at this point, I think June 20th and June 27th were the next two dates where we appeared to have the most participation. So, Councilman Lee, you probably may not have gotten that. Were you able on the 20th to meet that night or the 27th?
I'll go with the majority, whichever one. I mean, I'll make it work.
May 20th.
I know.
Everybody could be the 20th, but Travis.
I know, Councilman. That would only give us 3 days to get it approved if we don't meet. So if we meet the 20th, perhaps we could approve it the 27th and have further discussion that night, if that suits the council.
I'd like to be at that meeting. We've kicked the can down the road for long enough, and I think there's discussion need to be had, and I'd appreciate it if you would consider my schedule for a night that we can meet.
I'm fine with the 27th. I just know it's going to be cutting it close to get it passed, but we can meet the 27th, the 28th if need be, I suppose.
What about the week of the 13th?
Next week?
I'm out that week.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there was some,
We only started on
it started on the 15th was the poll, so I don't know about the availability. I know I was going to be out a couple of days, but we could do back to back if we need to.
That's fine. I mean, it's
Y'all want to go with the 27th?
in the
If the
staff.
28th, can we start at 7 opposed to 6:30? That would help my schedule.
If need be. I mean, the
Yeah,
27th,
yeah, if 7:30, and 6:30 is fine on the 27th, but if we need to meet on the 28th, I just may have to be late if we start at 6:30.
Okay.
I could be here by 7. But that's just secondary if we had to meet, correct? Is that what you're
Correct.
telling me?
That's my plan.
Yeah, I can be here the 27th.
Okay.
So you're talking about two meetings, one on 27th, one on 28th?
If it
Well,
runs
we're
over.
gonna, if we need another one.
If it runs over.
Okay.
They give the staff enough time?
Yeah, we're prepared to have discussion with council whenever they're ready.
We're gonna do it 27th.
Is anybody gonna be out 27th?
That work for you?
I'm fine with the 27th.
Okay. All right. so-
Mayor, Mr. Pro Tem, I make a motion, we have our budget hearings. I guess we'll have to recess
Yes,
to the 27th.
yes.
Second.
All in favor? Motion? All right.
Did
6:30.
Councilman Barber
What's the-
respond back to that today?
He did not respond back yet.
Or was that the-
So. All right, so we're set for June the 27th at 6:30. All
I
right,
would ask the council to be prepared though, that night, so we can get through that night.
yeah, the
If you have any
schedule,
notes or any questions from the previous departments, or I would ask you to really scope that budget so we can try to tackle it that night if possible.
all right. At this time, we will move on to public hearing RZ 22-02, Henry Howley. And this is applicants requesting rezoning of a 1.519 acre tract of land from B3 to R20A. And I will turn this over to Stephen, but I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So,
All in favor? Stephen?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council. So this request is located at the corner of Swift Creek Road and NC Highway 210. It's the former location of, I believe, a country store back when this was in the county. It had a business zoning way back when, and it still has a business zoning, but it's a residential property. The applicant has requested a residential zoning, R20A. And you notice there's a B3 property across the street from it, currently vacant. As the Mayor Pro Tem said, it's 1.52 acres. There are currently two homes on the property. There's a trailer, mobile home, I should say, and a single-family dwelling, stick-built. That will remain. This is just a survey of the location, different orientation than the previous map. This just shows that the property is guided for residential. The green is a R20A, basically low-density designation in the comp plan, so it's consistent with the comp plan. So with the rezoning, the planning board or council are required to adopt a system statement showing that it's consistent with the comprehensive growth plan, consistent with the Unified Development Code, and consistent with surrounding land uses. and staff believe it meets all those conditions. Planning staff and the planning board recommend approval of RZ 2202 with this statement declaring the request consistent with the town of Smithfield's comprehensive growth management plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable in the public interest. And I have a recommended motion for your consideration. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions?
Mr. Winsman, this property come before the council not that long ago. Well, maybe it has been a little bit long, but it's been recent. Since I've been on this board,
It's been in this term.
I'm not
Okay.
familiar with that personally.
I think it's the street, place across the street, where the soccer field's at, where it was before us. No, it wasn't.
there was a bunch of residents here that was in opposition.
Yeah, they were in
Yeah, but it's on
opposition.
the other side of the highway.
It's the same, I think it's the same tract of land we were talking about before. Exact
No,
same tract.
B3 is the one we had before us, it's B2 now.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, B3 was the one that came before us.
Mr. Rabel is right. I got it.
Okay.
Sorry, I was misunderstood.
Oh,
I do believe there was a car dealership proposed for that location
Yes.
a number of years ago.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
That's, okay. That is on the opposite side.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's across
Thank you.
Swift Creek.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Or questions, I should say? Are there any questions from anyone in attendance tonight to speak to this matter? All right. If not, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
All right.
All right. What is the pleasure of the council? Is there a recommendation of the council?
Make a motion, we approve zoning map amendment RZ 22-02, finding consistent with the town of Smithfield comprehensive growth management plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along, this is public hearing RZ 22-03, Wood and Warwick. The applicants are requesting to rezone 3 parcels of land totaling 42.1 acres from R20 to B3 zoning districts to the light industrial.
Yes, thank you.
From R20 and B3, excuse me. All right. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Stephen?
Thank you. Yes, this is a split zone parcel, as you can see on the map here. This property is located at the end of Barber Road and US Highway 70 Business West, just south of OPW, and north of the Amazon that's under construction right now. Yeah, so it's split zoned with B3 zoning in the front of the property and R20A to the rear currently. So, and they are requesting a light industrial zoning. Again, it's 42.1 acres, split zoned. It'll be in the Wilson's Mills Fire District, Duke Energy, but would be in the purview of Smithfield Water and Sewer. And it currently is in our ETJ. On the left is an image of the growth management plan, which shows guidance to industrial. So it is consistent with industrial. And the image on the right is of a recent rezoning to light industrial that this council has passed not too long ago. So just, this whole area is transitioning towards industrial, consistent with the comprehensive plan, and this is just one more rezoning in that manner. So with that, staff is finding the rezoning consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the Unified Development Code. The property will be developed in conformance with the UDO, and it's compatible with surrounding land uses. As I said, this area has been transitioning to light industrial and will continue to do so. And with that, staff and the planning board are recommending approval of the rezoning with a statement declaring the request consistent with the comprehensive growth management plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest. And I have a recommended motion for your consideration.
All right, thank you.
Any
Stephen.
questions?
Any questions for Stephen at this time?
Are there any plans for this site?
There are no plans identified at this point. I have heard that there's interest in the parcel. That's all I can tell you. I have received calls from, inquiries about it.
All right, if nothing further, any questions or comments from those in attendance tonight? All right, not seeing any. At this time, I'll entertain a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? All right, what is the pleasure of the council?
Like to make a motion to, is this how it goes?
Yeah. Yeah. Read that right there. Read that right there.
Make a motion to approve zoning map amendment RZ 2203, finding it consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Management Plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest.
All in favor? All right, great.
that
Good
okay?
job, Sloan.
First one under the belt.
First one out.
So I can leave now, right?
Right now, we still got a ways to
Many
go.
more, brother.
Get your feet wet. 3 down.
Good job, man.
Next, we have a
Stay water on you. You got it now.
Can you read back the motion? Was it the last?
This one? RZ 2203,
All right.
was the number wrong?
All right, back on track. Up next, we have a public hearing, RZ 22-04, TLC Estates LLC. The applicant is requesting to rezone .48 acres of land from R20 zoning district to the R8 zoning district. This time, I'd entertain a motion and a second to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Stephen, back to you.
All right, thank you. So this is a property that sits on Buffalo Road, just north of the Greenway. And it's surrounded by agricultural property and woodland. And again, this is south of Durwood Stevenson Parkway also. It's a small parcel with 2 homes on it. This used to be the home of the Harbor House, which moved out of this site and has been trying to sell it for quite some time. So its present zoning is R20A. They would like a R8 zoning, and their intent with the R8 zoning is to be able to split the lot into 2, creating 2 more conforming lots. Right now, it's a non-conforming lot because it has 2 homes on it. By being able to put a property line down the middle, separating the 2 homes, they'll create 2 more conforming lots. The houses are, I'll get into it, but the houses are non-conforming in terms of setbacks, but They will meet the side setbacks. The front setbacks will remain an issue, but it'll be a betterment to their situation. And the whole area is been changing towards an R8 zoning, which is consistent with the comp plan, which is pretty much my whole presentation. It's not in the floodplain. As I said, it has 2 homes. Here are pictures of the 2 homes. Future property line will basically be running down that, where the fence is. The non-conforming nature that will remain is the front setback is about 10 feet from the public right-of-way, and that won't change. It's a current nonconformity that will remain. As we do lot splits, we can't create nonconformities, but if one exists and we're not changing it, it's okay. So when we put that lot line down the middle, once it's rezoned, that lot line will be conforming with setbacks. I pretty much described all this. Both structures are habitable from a residential perspective. As I said, the property's been vacant for quite some time. The comprehensive plan supports this rezoning. As I mentioned, the nonconformities. One could look at it as spot zoning, but as I said, the whole area is transitioning towards R8 zoning, and there is an R8 zoning just behind it, some distance. So in the very near future, the whole area will become an R8 district. We have a sketch plan already for development in that area, and should that come to fruition, it would have an R8 rezoning. And right now, you can see in this image to the right, that is a current R8 zone, just a couple hundred yards behind this house, or these houses. So staff is finding this consistent with the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan. It will be consistent with the Unified Development Code with the minor subdivision that's going to follow. It'll be compatible with the surrounding land uses, as again, this whole area is transitioning to medium-density residential. Planning staff and the planning board recommend approval of RZ 2204 with a statement declaring the request consistent with the town of Smithfield's Comprehensive Growth Management Plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable in the public interest. And again, I have a motion here for your consideration.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Stephen? I do have one. If you could go back 2 slides, Stephen. I think it's 2. The property in question, is that the one with the red stripes in it?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. I was trying to get my proximity right for the other location. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else for Stephen from the council? All right. Any comments or questions from those in attendance tonight? All right, not seeing any. Entertain a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right. And what is the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to move to approve zoning map amendment RZ-22-04, finding it consistent with the town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Management Plan and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public's interest.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, this next hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing.
Do this on.
So I'm going to ask anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to stand up and be sworn in by the clerk at this time.
Yeah.
Answer a question, stand up.
If you want to speak,
You have to ask them. If they agree with.
if there are any questions of you
Yeah.
and you need to speak. you
I'm
need
going to
be sworn
ask
in.
y'all if y'all agree with what he said, so it may be best
you
if
don't
you're
need to.
Go ahead
sworn
and
in.
swear in, if probably
Going
better.
to be sworn in.
You can stand right there. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is for S 22-03 Whitley Towns. J&J Flowers Finch, Inc. is requesting preliminary subdivision approval for the construction of a 70-unit, single-family attached townhome development. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Stephen, again.
Sure, thank you.
yes, I'm not gonna say that.
I believe the, at the conditional zoning, it was 7 units. It's now 68. There's 2 units less. I think the public hearing notice was a repeat of the previous
Gotcha, okay.
recycled, I guess, but it's 68 units. The location, if you're all familiar with, this is just north of the former Holligmeyer Kmart site, near Britt Street and Wilson's Mills Road on West Market Street. Currently zoned B3 conditional zoning. A few months back, we had a conditional zoning with a master plan for this site. This is a 10.74 acre site, plus they're adding 0.87 acres of the Holligmeyer site to provide site access, which was also described in the master plan. So this is consistent in that manner. It's Town of Smithfield Fire District, could potentially add students to the schools. It's town, water and sewer, and will be Duke Electric. This property does contain some wetland and a drainage ditch that crosses through the center of the property and along the south edge of the currently Twin States farming parcel. There's no floodplain present, but there's also a few pockets of wetland on the site. And that is essentially the reason there are 2 fewer lots. If you recall, the master plan was considering ditching or piping that ditch. They were unable to do that, so they've had to shift things around a bit to avoid those impacts. And you can see on the very south end of this master plan, hope I get this right. All right, that didn't work. There we go. There's the acreage they're getting from the Holligmeyer site to provide access at the break in the highway at the crossover. So having that extra land is allowing this development to have full access intersection. Whereas the main, what looks like the main cul-de-sac there would be a right in, right out because there's no crossover. Okay? This is just an example of the grading plan that shows the berms along the highway, which was a request of council. They've actually got a pretty significant berm there. And they've ended up with 3 stormwater pond areas along that ditch. Originally, they had shown kind of one major area. It's now resulted in a series of smaller stormwater ponds. You see those? Okay. That's really the main difference from the previous. They've also shown a more robust landscape plan with that berm. They're also showing sidewalks to the community recreation area that they're providing. So there's better pedestrian access. They've actually got 2 sidewalks now going all the way out to US 70 to access the path along US 70. And again, that is a public right-of-way in the middle of that street. And then it branches off into private parking lots, and all the townhouses front on those parking lots. And this is consistent with what was approved previously. So this is consistent with the master plan, which is what is required with a preliminary plat following a conditional rezoning. With the following changes, this plat is designed around the drainage ditch, as I said earlier, whereas the master plan showed the drainage ditch being piped. So, I mean, that's just reacting to some site considerations, but it didn't really change much in the development plan. It did result in the loss of two loss of two townhouse units. And as I said, there's now 3 stormwater control measures. 2 of the stormwater measures are going to be bioretention, so those are more maintenance heavy than, let's say, a wet pond or a dry pond. That's where you've got a lot of wetland plants that are taking in the nutrients that collects in the stormwater. And that is so they will, otherwise they would exceed their allowed nutrient load. So the state rules are requiring biotreatment. And I said earlier, the preliminary plat now shows an additional sidewalk along the public street going all the way down to US 70. And the open space is connected by sidewalks. The berm is 5 feet high along West Market Street, which was a request of council. They are now showing 4 shrubs and an ornamental tree with each townhouse unit, and 1 overstory tree for every 50 feet of right-of-way, which is consistent with the new landscape code. And they have now shown the open space amenities, which previously they just alluded to them with a space, but they've actually identified what they might put there. So staff is finding this preliminary plat consistent with the 4 finding of fact, which staff has its opinion stated behind each for the council to consider. The staff is recommending approval, and the planning board is recommending approval of S-2203 with the following conditions. First one is just codifying the deviations, the same deviations that were in the conditional zoning. So that's just a repeat. Trash and recycling rollouts be stored within garages or rear yards, that the parking lot entrances be constructed according to the town's standard driveway detail, that the 25-foot perimeter buffer planting be comprised of existing vegetation and landscaping, and/or a fence to ensure 60% opacity, which is a code requirement, that the townhouses be comprised of a mix of siding types such as lap, board and batten, shakes and brick, and end units be comprised of windows and other architectural details. That there's a cross-access easement for the shared use of the driveway off of West Market Street, because that is also still going to be used for the future use of Hulligmeyer. That park dedications fees be paid in lieu of parkland prior to recording the final plat. Utility fees be paid as required. That a stormwater operations and maintenance agreement be prepared and recorded for the SEMs on the site, and that the HOA be reviewed by the town attorney and include maintenance of all the common amenities. And with that, staff is recommending the following motion for approval.
Thank you,
Any
Steve.
questions?
Any questions by council?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have a few questions.
Yes, please.
Mr. Winsman, I think this is page 6. If you could go back to that slide, please. It's the one that shows the overlay with the parking area. Yep.
This one?
Yeah. Can you make it big?
Yep.
My concern is regards to the entrance. Don't remember, the discussion. I do know about the traffic. But if they're taking, the property owner agreed to do that, what is this going to look like? Is it going to be as presented here? Or are they going to put some shrubs or something on that? Or is it going to just make these curbs that go to nowhere, much like we have out at the roundabout?
Are you referring to the center island?
The main entrance to the subdivision.
Well, the
that has
main
two-way
entrance-
traffic.
The
one that has two-way traffic.
this one? Oh, this one.
Yes.
This is the main entrance to the subdivision where the subdivision sign will be, but this will allow residents to cross over.
I understand. So it's going to be another entrance, essentially.
Yeah, and this is consistent with the master plan.
I didn't question that. My question to you is, what happens to the property that's already there? I mean, is it just gonna be a parking lot, and they're gonna turn into that part? I mean, that is currently that old dilapidated parking lot of Holly Myers, am I right?
Right, they're going to be improving this entrance to it, as shown in the master plan, and there will be a cross-access easement, so the future use of Hollig Meyer, which is currently, was purchased a few months back, maybe a year ago, and I have seen development plans for the Kmart portion of it. The Hollig Meyer plans, I think, are still in flux, but that whole parking lot will be improved with modern landscaping, with the development of that
Who's
site.
responsible for that
Who's responsible for that?
parking lot?
The rest of that parking lot will be improved by the owner of that development.
And that property's been dilapidated for over 15 years. It's a concern to me that these people are gonna buy houses in this new area and have to look at that. I mean, I don't, that's why I'm asking about it. It would make sense to put a berm or something, have them put some shrubs or something to give them a decent entrance. That's my whole concern. But, okay.
Within,
Solely
if-
going to be an entrance to that subdivision, that side where Holly Myers is, or is it going to be
No,
adjoining?
this is so they can come out and.
yeah,
go
it's a
this way.
secondary entrance that allows them a crossover at the
This one, they can
highway.
only turn
Shared with
right.
Holly Myers?
Right.
If something was to,
And I would say within the next year, you're going to see that site redevelop.
is what you're telling me.
So they're not just going to be pulling into driveway or parking lot and then it'll be manicured, updated, street grade, whatever
Yeah, this entrance will be designed,
it'll look like a street. Pulling off of the road, it'll look like a street where they take a right into a parking lot.
they can go right or straight into a parking lot or take a left into their development.
That's what was my question. Will it be a shared entrance or exit for
It's shared.
future plans of the Holly Myers
That's right.
Kmart parking lot as well as the subdivision?
Correct.
And to Councilman Scott's point, so is the developer going to help?
The developer's here.
Are you going to help with that aesthetic view, or are you going to depend on the,
I think there's a pretty extensive landscape plan. It's already been suggested.
in conjunction with the Holly Myers owner?
I haven't been speaking with him about that. My partner has, but
Here's the
That's my
landscape
question.
plan.
there was a huge landscaping plan that was designed to improve that entrance as well.
I don't look like none of those plants on it to me.
Yeah, it is, it's right there.
There's plants on the Hollig Meyer side of that entranceway, and there's plants on the townhouse side of that entranceway.
On the right and the left, right?
But
There.
on the north side of the, let's say, new road, but on that south end, what's on that south side? When you come in on your right, what's going to be on your right?
Go ahead.
Everything on our side is going to be landscaped. It's my understanding that we're going to have a shared maintenance agreement on the hashed area, which is the parking lot and not our property that we're purchasing. So when you pull in on the northwest side would be landscaped in our landscape plan.
What am I going to be looking at on my right?
That's,
No, there's some landscaping shown on this plan on the right side of the driveway, but much more on the left side. And again, that site is redeveloping in the next, 6 to 8 months.
Potentially.
I've seen a sketch plan for the Kmart side. They're looking for
That didn't
tenants
do
for the
anything.
other side. Once it starts redeveloping, I think you'll see the rest of the site redevelop.
And sir, what was your name?
Jordan.
George.
Finch.
So I just present that as a concern because the people that'll be living here later are the ones that will have to deal with it. I mean, if we don't discuss it, I'm not against your project.
Sure.
But I just want to ask you a question. So I think I heard you say that you don't own that property.
That's correct.
It's going to stay with the current owner.
I don't have a point or anything, but the hashed area, correct me if I'm wrong, the hashed area is the maintenance. Can I?
You can go
Yeah.
ahead. Yes, sir.
My understanding is you guys were buying that,
We
but
are.
it would be cross-access easement on it.
We're buying this right here. This is the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The easement area.
That's my bad.
This is the heavy landscaping that I was talking about.
That's right.
All of this is new, consistent with the plan, but I think, Sloan, you asked about this.
Yes, that will be,
Not in our plan.
that's not in your
This side-
plan.
This side of the entrance is not in our plan.
So we have to assume that that's going to be updated to be aesthetically pleasing.
Whenever that's updated.
Okay. That was my
And that was your
misunderstanding.
concern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it stays like it is,
then why is that landscaping there on that right?
The
I mean, because you said it was.
property
in-
manager for the Hollig-Meyer site is here in the audience if you want him to swear in and talk about the plans for the Hollig-Meyer.
I'm swearing it.
Well, it'd be nice to hear his version of what's going on.
You want to swear him in?
For me,
If that's okay.
would y'all like to hear it?
Yeah,
We'll bring it.
that's the in
There you
question right now.
Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
So I'm going to stand here for,
Yes, sir.
Could you state your name?
I think you can hear me.
Your name,
As
Jim, can you state your name for everyone?
Rest for the
here?
record.
Jim Paracone, Partners Commercial Realty, property manager for the site and representative of the owners.
Thank you.
I don't think I really need this. Can you hear me?
It's for the recording.
Now I don't want it at all. So as Stephen alluded to, we are working on a plan for that entire site. If all goes well, sometime this summer, that entire parking lot's going to be completely done over as part of the renovation that's taking place first at the former Kmart building. So we have somebody going into there. We should be finalizing that deal the end of this month. We're working on a second operator going into that building as well. And in order to make all that work and make it pleasing, we're going to do the entire parking lot at one shot, because from the outside, whether people won't recognize the fact that one or two people are in there, we want it to look nice. Overall, that helps in the marketing of the entire project for the remaining space. So once that begins to take place, that entire parking lot's going to be brought up to current standards with islands, landscaping, et cetera. That includes this drive. We contemplated that as part of the sale of this land, the 0.87 acres, to the folks that are developing this project. Does that address the concerns?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Jim, how long has that property, Hollig-Meyer's, been vacant? Do you have any idea?
Probably since before I came here in 2006. I don't remember. If Kmart was operating then, I just don't remember, but it's been a long time. The current owners only acquired it a little over a year ago.
Myers ain't been there?
I remember being able to buy ammo there, so I would have been 18.
Myers ain't been there over 20 years. Kmart's been there within probably 15 years.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I think Myers was out a long time before Kmart was.
Any other questions for Stephen at this time? All right. Let's see. Does the applicant have any other information they wish to provide? I know you've already given some update, but anything else at this time? Was the testimony offered by Mr. Winsman accurate, and do you agree with what he said? All right. I believe you were the only one sworn in, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any other discussion? At this time? All right, what is the pleasure of the board? This time, we can go through all four findings of fact one by one, or we can approve them as part of the motion, if specified.
I make a motion to move to approve the Whitley Towns preliminary plat S-22-03 with 10 conditions found in the staff report based on the findings of facts for preliminary plats. Do you need me to read all findings of facts, or is that?
No, that's sufficient.
That's good? Okay.
All right, have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Let's see. We are up to public hearing number 6. This is not a quasi judicial hearing, so no one will need to be sworn in. This is CZ 22-02 Woodleaf. I'll let Stephen read all the ID numbers, but at this time, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Stephen?
All right, thank you. I'll read this request so everyone hears it.
Yeah.
NRP Ventures LLC is requesting a conditional rezoning of 492.2 acres of land from R20A to R8 conditional zoning with a master plan for a planned development consisting of 490 detached single-family lots, 691 attached single-family townhouse lots, 564 units in three-story multifamily apartments, and 260 units in four-story multifamily apartments. This map shows the location on Mallard Road. If you recall, there's a solar farm just off of Mallard Road in Brogden. It starts there and then spreads to the northeast along Mallard Road. This is the master plan. Just want to point out a few things on this master plan. This coloring represents wetland, the kind of hashed mark. These units here, each of those little boxes are townhouse units. This is single family. This and up along here. And also down in here, these are single family units. This area are three-story apartments, and this is four-story apartments. So that's the lay of the land. The solar farm that I referenced is here. A lot of people will know where that is. And there's existing residential development on Brogden Road, right at the corner of Brogden and Mallard, right there. So there's a good number of properties all listed here in the table. I'm not going to read them, but it's Marshalls, Teltons, and the Hills Crocker, the main families. This development will likely be a Duke Electric. There's a Duke power line running right through the middle of it. I'll get into more detail on that. It does fall within the town's sewer and water district. This development will have almost 25 acres of active managed open space and 42 some acres of passive, basically wetland. There'll be 44,000 lineal feet of new roads, 51 acres of public right-of-way, and 2,005 units with a gross density of 4.08 dwelling units per acre. So this land is a mix of residential and agricultural land currently with woodlands, wetlands, and fields. There's blue line streams present, and Duke Power Line bisects the property from east to west. And you can see the dashed line. Let's see if I can get that. Here we go. This is the Duke Power Line running through that area. And again, for orientation, this is the solar farm. And then you can see the wetlands and that designation on the plan, that's all wetland. And here's the other half of the site, the northern half of the site. Again, you can see the power line, dashed power line crossing. Just a little more detail here, shows the townhouses and the configuration of roads. There's some open space represented in green in the townhouse lots. And then the other half of the development, a little more detail here of the apartments and more townhouses and single-family. So the comprehensive plan did not conceive of this dense development in this area. This was all considered to be agricultural land in the comp plan, and the primary reason for that is there's no sewer over here. This developer is proposing to bring sewer and water to the site, and so if this gets approved tonight, the rezoning would be both a rezoning and an amendment to that comprehensive plan, if so approved. And the developer has indicated he is proposing voluntary annexation after this site is rezoned. And so the biggest hurdle with this site is that the water currently is up here at close to the interchange of the freeway, I-95 and US 70 Business East. That's where water is. So the developer is going to have to bring water infrastructure in from that side to a water tower to provide additional pressure to the site. Sewer, on the other hand, the developer is proposing to, so I keep pushing the wrong button, gravity flow to a pump station somewhere down here and pump the sewage all the way to the plant on the Brogdon, along the Brogdon alignment, essentially. So that with the first phase, the developer is going to have to provide all that infrastructure. It's a big project to make this project happen. As I mentioned earlier, Duke has a power line running right through the center for electric. The developer understands the town's interested in providing the electricity for this development and is willing to, if it's feasible in the time frame that they're going to work. There might be an opportunity for them to get temporary service from Duke and then ultimately get permanent power from the town, but that's yet to be determined.
We got lines out there already, too.
This is a phasing plan. They're anticipated to be 4 phases. Phase 1 in 2023 or earlier in 2024, and final completion in 2028. As I said earlier, water and sewer infrastructure essentially has to be completed with Phase 1 to make it work, because each phase needs both water and sewer. And as I said, sewer will have to be piped all the way to the plant to meet that timeline, because, as we all know, the sewer plant won't be operational until 2025, the new plant. So they're going to be, and the lines are full, so they need to go all the way to the plant. The red arrows indicate the site access, basically access new roads onto Mallard Road. There's quite a few. The highlighted routes are long stretches of east-west road. In my staff report, I had mentioned that there was some concern by staff of, those long stretches maybe being stretches that will carry more traffic, and maybe there'll be a tendency for people to have higher speeds. There's been some concern about maybe there being a need for a hierarchy of streets. Currently, the developer is proposing all 27-foot back-to-back roads and 50-foot rights-of-way. And, the thinking is that if there's a hierarchy, you might have wider rights-of-ways on the busier roads with a little bit greater setbacks, maybe wider streets to handle the level of traffic if there's that much traffic. This was discussed at the planning board, and the planning board felt there were enough options for them to turn off that long stretch where the hierarchy wasn't needed. Staff also talked about perhaps the needing for some kind of traffic calming, not necessarily speed bumps, but something else maybe to signal for cars to slow down at various points along these long stretches. Again, the planning board did not find that to be a need. Any questions on this slide? There is one more access point, which I don't have in red, and that's because the planning board and staff discussed it. They're showing access directly onto Marshall Drive, which is a 20-foot wide, apparently unmaintained DOT right-of-way, existing residential street that really can't handle any additional traffic. And so we do not want traffic. We usually like lateral connectivity, but we're not requesting it, or we're asking that it, conditioning that it be disconnected, given the state of that street and the fact that it's not maintained. This red arrow here represents that change. That access would be cut off. DOT is requiring turn lanes and other improvements in response to a traffic impact analysis that was done. Lateral access onto Marshall Drive would result in 45 trips on peak hour inbound and a similar in outbound in 2023 when this is fully developed, which is why we're recommending this be disconnected. And again, there's a condition of approval. This is the condition of Marshall Drive currently. Very, very narrow street with ditches and in very poor maintenance. As I said previously, the developer is proposing 27-foot back-to-back streets in 50-foot rights-of-way. There's a graphic here of that. The entrances, some of the entrances do show a wider right-of-way with like a median dividing them. Those would be 80-foot rights-of-way with some landscaping. They have provided adequate lateral connections. I mean, much of the surrounding property is wetland, but where there is developable land, they have shown lateral connectivity. So if those lands develop, there would be connections to them. There are a number of short cul-de-sacs, and there's a concern that some of the cul-de-sacs could be used for parking and would be an issue with fire code. So we do have a condition regarding the cul-de-sac meeting current standards. And they are showing trees in the rights-of-way on these details. And as you know, the town of Smithfield doesn't have a means to maintain trees and rights-of-way, so we request that all street trees be on the private property just outside of the right-of-way. They are proposing standard B612 curb and gutter with the exception of within and in front of townhouses where valley curbs are proposed. Again, the similar detail we've approved in other townhouse developments. They're providing 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of each residential street. Our subdivision code only requires one side of the street, so it's a more robust pedestrian plan. Sidewalks are also required along Mallard Road frontage per our subdivision code. We are recommending that one of the sidewalks on the one side of the street be a multi-use trail consistent with the PED plan, which is being, we've got a draft of it, it just hasn't been before the council yet, but that is envisioning sidewalk on one side, multi-use trail on the other. So we request that they follow that plan, which will likely be adopted soon. I did say that they're showing all 50-foot public rights-of-way. You know, the town of Smithfield standard right-of-way width is 60, and the town council can approve a lesser width right-of-way down to as low as 50 feet. They are requesting all 50-foot right-of-way, so the council should take that in consideration if that is an appropriate right-of-way width. With all the public and private utilities, sidewalks, 50 feet can be narrow, and if there's ever any other demand for that right-of-way, if the town ever does want to put trees in rights-of-way, or, you know, it can be a narrow right-of-way. They do have significant passive and unmanaged open space. Again, they have lots of wetlands on this site. They are proposing 2 8,000-square-foot clubhouses with fitness centers, lounges, meeting rooms, fireplaces, and community activity areas on this site plan. A swimming pool is proposed in the most northerly clubhouse within the apartment development area as part of this plan. We don't have details, designs on it, but they have indicated a location. Other amenities are shown in photos in the booklet that was provided by the developer. with amenities such as playground equipment, dog park, gazebo, decorative fencing, shade shelters, and lawn sports. Again, we don't have details of where those would all go, but they're indicating that they are part of the mix of amenities that you will see when this site develops. There are no public parks proposed, only private. The current town's park master plan does not address any ETJ areas. It only addresses the current corporate limits, and we are rectifying that. We're having the new park master plan, which is currently being developed, look at the ETJ areas also, so that if they are developing, we are considering the need for future parks in those areas to service future residents in those areas. Just for an example, the fee in lieu that will be required is based on a formula. It's 1/57th an acre per the number of lots in the development. For this development, there would be approximately $637,000 or $317 per lot provided in park dedication fees, whereas a 40-acre community park, if purchased, would cost roughly $725,000 in this area, which is roughly 3 to 4 times more than the amount of fees being collected. Just showing the need, you know, if parkland is to be purchased in this area to service the new residents in this area, you know, the current park fees do not address that need. Public safety is also mentioned to me that they do believe that due to response times, an additional fire station could be needed in this area in the future, given the distance between our current fire station and the distance here to this area, and potentially another police department substation could be needed. So the master plan in front of you does not have any landscaping or buffering details. The developer is requesting a deviation from the minimum buffer requirements of the UDO internally, meaning between the townhouses, which is a multifamily product, and the single family. They don't want to create landscape buffers, or between the multifamily apartments and the other dwellings within the site. They're not going to buffer. It's all internal buffering they're not going to do, but they are going to buffer the outside of the development, all the edges, which I think is appropriate. I mean, it's going to be developed and conceived of as a whole, and it's not going to impact current residents, which is really what the buffering is intended to do. Staff is recommending a landscape berm with a decorative fence along Mallard Road where there are double-fronted lots, and that the berm be a minimum of 3 feet high on average to screen the rear yards. This has been an issue. The council has expressed this issue repeatedly, that they don't want to look at the back sides of houses. And that was expressed to the developer early on, that that's going to be an expectation. They've agreed to do that. They say they have enough space to do that. So they will honor that condition of approval, which I have placed in the development recommendation. Other areas, we'd be requiring a typical street yard where there's not a double-fronted situation. Other than that, staff recommends the developer provide, you know, the remaining requirements for landscaping and buffering as per the code. The developer has done a good job showing conceptual stormwater control measures throughout the site. They seem to be located in areas, you know, where they ought to be, and most of them appear to be fairly accessible from public streets, which you'd expect and need. A detailed stormwater management plan will be required with a preliminary plat of the site. I've got the same conditions I put in for all these developments about trash and dumpster screening. We don't want to see them from the public right of way. They need to be put in a garage or in a rear yard. So the single-family products, they're proposing 490 50-foot wide lots, which are 6,000 square feet in area. So that's an R6 sized lot. You know, R6 lots are no longer, we don't allow 6,000 square foot lots in a traditional zoning code anymore. They are proposing a 6,000 square foot lot, 50 foot wide, which is on the smaller side, but larger than East River, and similar to a lot of the other lots that have been approved in the last year. All the home examples provided show 1.5 car garages, so they're not a full two-car garage. The minimum standard they're proposing is a 1.5 car stall, which allows some storage and a car. They would meet the minimum requirements of 2 parking spaces per unit, per house. Most will have more than that. They're proposing front setback of 25 feet versus 30 feet in the traditional R8 standard. They're proposing a side yard setback of 5 feet versus the 10 that's required in traditional R8. Rear setback, they're requesting 15 feet versus the 25 that you would see in an R8 zoning. These are some examples of the types of homes and materials you would see for single-family products. A mix of 1-story and 2-story, mixture of siding materials. For the townhouse, I'm sorry, this is still a single family. The 25-foot front setback is deep enough to put a full-size pickup truck in. You're able to get one car in the driveway without it being extending into the public right-of-way. And I think if you recall, I think East River was 20 feet, and you see a lot of cars sticking into the public right-of-way, so they've given us an extra 5 feet. Again, not the 30 feet that the traditional code requires, but it's still manageable to get a car in the parking lot, in the driveway. They've not shown any rear patios or decks, but staff's recommending that there be a usable deck or patio included with each unit of at least 100 square feet in size, so that there is at least a minimal backyard. As you probably see with a lot of homes, they put a lot of house on a small lot, and often the rear yards slope off into a wetland or some other space, and we want to make sure that at least there's a pad for the home and the residents to use, before the whole lot slips away into slopes and wetlands. For the townhouses, the applicant is proposing 691 townhouses. In the traditional code, townhouses require a special use permit. With conditional zoning, you're putting conditions on the approval, so you can approve townhouses without a special use permit. They are proposing the same 25-foot setbacks for the townhouses from the front, a building separation between townhouse units of 20 feet, between townhouse blocks anyway, and a rear setback of 15 versus the 25. So again, similar setbacks you saw on the single-family homes. They are proposing 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,400 to 1,500 square foot units. Minimum unit size for a 3-bedroom, 2.5 would be 1,600 square feet. They're proposing townhouses with 1-car garages. So essentially, you could get 1 car in the garage, 1 in the driveway. That's 2 spaces per lot. They are providing 275 overflow parking spaces in addition to the 2 cars per lot. Off-street parking in total comes to 2.39 spaces per unit. And in this picture here shows where those off-street parking lots are. I want you to take notice of the proximity to some units and how the distance between the parking lots and other units. In other words, where your guests going to park and how far they got to walk. I'll get to the next slide here. Staff feels the overflow parking is not conveniently located for all units. We do have a standard in the code for accessory parking for commercial buildings being no greater than 400 feet to a front door of a commercial business. If we use that same standard, they're at 500 feet to these accessory parking. So it's a good distance. You know, if you have people showing up for a birthday party carrying a cake and a stroller in the other hand, or a car seat carrier in the other hand, it's a good long way to get to that house, or you're gonna have people dropping stuff off or trying to park right at the driveway. This has been an issue with other developments. I still think it's an issue with this development. I think there's an opportunity to have more convenient accessory parking. And just for comparisons, Floyd's Landing had 2.62 spaces per unit for overflow parking, or for parking in general. Marion Woods had a little over 3 spaces per unit provided in the development. Harvest Run had 3. On the lot, they had a greater setback. They were able to get 3 cars on each lot. And Franklin Towns had 3.33 spaces per unit. So this development is less than all those other developments for accessory parking. I already mentioned the 25 feet. I already mentioned that staff was hoping there would be a little more variation in the street widths, kind of a hierarchy of streets, something for the council to consider. And we have the same condition for the townhouses, that there be 100 square feet of patio area per unit, so there's some usable backyard. The developers provided 2 typical elevations for townhouses showing a variety of materials and looks. Obviously, these 2 styles wouldn't go side by side. They don't really go together very well. And with 400 some townhouses, we'd expect there to be additional elevations that look different than this, so we don't have the same repeated throughout the whole development. So there is a condition of approval to that fact that we'd want additional designs for this development to keep it from being monotonous, with the same palette of materials to be used throughout. So for the multifamily apartments, again, there were 564 units in the 3-story apartments, 22 buildings, and 260 units in 3 4-story apartments. We don't have a lot of detail on the master plan for this development. They've shown an example here that shows the materials and the look, but just looking at it, it doesn't, this would not fit what they're proposing in the master plan. So they're not building this building. It is an example, but it's sized, it's not consistently sized with what's on the master plan. So what I'm getting at is the multifamily is a special use permit in the code, and typically with special use permits, we get a fair amount of detail so the council can place conditions on it, making sure it doesn't address health, safety, welfare issues, and that it meets code. Originally, I had proposed a condition of approval on this development that they come back with a special use permit for that portion of the development so that the council can have that level of detail to understand the project better and to be comfortable with it before approving it. That doesn't work with this development plan, the developer's contractual agreements, and his request is that he come back to the council as a site plan review. And it's been raised that the council would not have the legal strings that a special use permit would put on that review as opposed to just a site plan review. But when looking at this project in its entirety, the multifamily products are isolated from outside the development. There's wetlands surrounding everything, so they're not going to have impact other than traffic to adjacent residences. You know, it's pretty well secluded, and so health, safety, welfare issues are really not going to be an issue. It's all going to be internal issues, and mostly issues that can be addressed by staff with the site plan review, bringing it up to code. We have no architectural materials. The council has the ability to, condition that they provide architectural standards consistent with what we're looking at here, and staff has provided those conditions in the approval. We can put conditions on now at this level about, how many cars per unit we want to see in this development for the townhouses particularly, and the distance between the units and those parking lots. And from there on, I don't know if there's a lot of meaningful conditions the council would likely put on these multifamily products that staff can't already address. Again, because there's no, concerns about being too close to a neighbor, needing more landscaping, those sorts of things. Typically, you'll see some comments about where dumpster screens are located so they're not in the public view, and making sure the parking lots are safely configured. I think staff has all that. I don't have an issue with it. I don't know if a special use permit's going to bring a lot of additional value to the council, but again, that is your decision. I just wanted you to know that we originally were requesting that special use permit like we had done with the townhouses at East River. But in discussion with the developer and looking at what impacts there could be, we're okay with a site plan review at council if the council's okay with that position. Okay? We can talk about that more later. So I have, they've listed materials, and that needs to be codified in their HOA agreements. And this is essentially a discussion of where a conditional zoning is in lieu of a special use permit. And the reason is because they provide the same level of detail, and you can put conditions on it, so there's no need for a special use permit, but we don't have that same level of detail at this point. It's a big development. It's hard to do that this early in such a large development, to provide that amount of detail. As part of this conditional zoning, the developer is providing additional parking greater than code requires. It still is greater than what code requires. Code only requires 2 cars per unit. They're providing additional landscaping, per their narrative not shown on the plan. They're showing trash and recycling enclosures and screening. The architectural floor plans and elevations, setbacks and other dimensional information. Some of these things are lacking in details on the master plan that we typically get. So the council's options tonight are: 1, to approve the rezoning with the master plan as presented, table the master plan and request additional information from the developer, require the multifamily, either the apartments and or the townhouses, to come special use permit, like we did with East River. The developer is requesting, rather than a special use permit, that the site plan review come back to council without a special use permit. Again, because his contractual obligations require him, for this development to move forward, require him to have all of his entitlements and not have to come back. So that's kind of the issue he's having. It's not your issue, but if this council is supportive of this development and wants it to proceed, you should consider the developer's request. And so this is just a summary of the requested deviations. I highlighted some of the key ones I want the council to consider: 25-foot front setback, 5-foot side yard setback, 50-foot rights-of-way versus 60, the 27-foot back-to-back road width. Again, the developer is proposing no parking on those roads. So where are people going to park? The developer is proposing the 2 clubhouses, 8,000 square feet of enclosed space, swimming pool, Class A building materials. There'll be no vinyl siding in this development. I know that's been a request of the council for other developments, wanting a little better materials. This developer is proposing that. He is going to meet the landscape berm requirement that we've had on every other development. And then, what was I going to say on this one? Not sure. So, consistency statement. This rezoning is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan currently. If the council does approve this rezoning, it is, by that fact, amending the comprehensive plan. Okay? Consistency with the Unified Development Code. This property will be developed in conformance with the Unified Development Code and the conditional zoning provisions, the deviations that this council will be approving. Compatibility with surrounding land uses. This development is not, I mean, it is compatible with the surrounding land uses as the wetlands really buffer almost all the adjacent properties from this development. Even though it's in an area that's traditionally and mostly agricultural and rural, it is well buffered. And I do believe it will be compatible. So the planning board discussed the parking. Again, they accepted the developer's standard of 500 feet. They rejected the need for hierarchy of streets. They rejected the need for any traffic calming measures. And they did recommend the detachment of the development from the Marshall Road or Marshall Drive, that street. So with that, planning staff and the planning board recommend approval of the development with the deviations listed here. I'm not going to go through them again. That the parking lot entrances be constructed according to the town's standard driveway detail, tree preservation plan be provided, the typical trash recycling rollout condition, a landscaping condition to bring everything up to current code, a condition about the sidewalk and the trail on Mallard Road, HOA declarations be reviewed by the town attorney prior to final plat, that there be architectural standards drafted and included in the HOA declarations, the HOA be responsible for all the common open space maintenance and SEMs, and parking enforcement, and the roll-off screening requirements. That the cul-de-sacs be revised to meet the town standard detail for cul-de-sacs. That there be additional architectural styles for townhouses be provided, so we don't just have two styles for 600 some units. Condition about the 100 square foot deck or patio for the units, street trees being outside the right-of-way. And this one, number 14, I want the council to consider what number is appropriate, that overflow parking be provided within 500 feet of each townhouse building. Now, that's the planning board's condition. If the council wants to deviate from that, you need to tell me what number you think it should be. There should be no lateral road connection to Marshall Road. No parking on public streets, and that should be enforced by the HOA. And then number 17 is the developer's request that rather than a special use permit, that they provide a courtesy review to the council of the multifamily prior to approval of the site plan for those products. And with that, are there any questions? Any comments on the conditions?
Thank you, Stephen. Questions from council?
Mayor Pro Tem, I have some comments. I'm appreciative of the project. I understand how much this would impact Smithfield, but the concerns I have is the lot size changing and the setbacks with the limited parking. You know, and adding narrow streets, and you have something bad happen and people can't get there, it could be bad. I mean, you mentioned it wouldn't be a hazard, but potentially if something bad happened, it could be. But I wonder if any of that's negotiation for this developer as far as the front setback. That 5 feet makes a big difference in a car, and especially with that berm. And I know we're looking at it from 5,000 feet, but if you zoom in, and when you have a plan, that buffer is going to be a real issue along that major road. Just a few concerns I have. And I think the planning board talked about this as well with the parking. 500 feet is a long ways to walk with groceries if you're having to do that. But, you know, Smithfield, we need to have smart growth. We need to make sure that we have rules for a reason. Obviously, we can discuss them, but I just think that there's too much here that could complicate that, but I'm just one person, so I'll rest my case.
Anything else?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd just like to say, I know we don't make this decision as this board here, but as the development, has already been approved on 70 and possibly, this development here, is there anybody on staff been communicating like with the school board and county commissioners? And, because they're gonna have to go to school somewhere.
Or multiple schools.
Councilmember Lee and council, as you know, the county just had announced the need for some additional schools and some funding. They had a small study, which we had been telling them that we're having growth. They were asking us once a year, now how many units are we getting? We're getting them every month. So we started reporting to them on a monthly basis.
Okay.
This one has not been reported to them yet because I typically do that after they get some rezoning. Then I put it on the radar screen. I have told them that something big is coming, but I don't want them to react to something that doesn't have any approvals yet. But yes, all the other ones that they've been notified and they're aware of what's going on, so they're not quite as reactionary. But yeah, they don't know about this one yet.
Okay, well, as long as we're having that communication, that's great.
Anything else?
Also, I will make a comment. I know you kept talking about the enforcement piece. I know a little bit during our budget discussion, we talked about, and I understand during the planning board meeting, probably about February, March, they talked about even possibly, adding a full-time code enforcement. Now, you start adding the subdivision that we're gonna add and talk about this subdivision here with a part-time code enforcement. Already, I know his job is overwhelming. How are we gonna be able to get the job done? Because, there's people in the audience tonight who ready to speak on some code enforcement things, and you start talking about adding other, developments or whatever. And this just kind of going, to the council, as we talking about our budget. And of course, we didn't add any positions or whatever, but having a part-time code enforcement, it's gonna be tough.
The 500 feet that's discussed, that's currently what they have drawn in their proposal at this point. And
That's a minimum. Some are closer, but
that's
500 feet
what
is,
they have or closer now.
right.
Okay.
But some of them are 500 feet away.
Okay, so I guess one point to Councilman Scott's concern about that is people parking on the road overnight so they don't have to walk. I've had some discussions about this, and my understanding is those streets are going to be marked no parking. And the homeowners association is going to enforce that, but also if they're marked no parking, once annexed in, the town of Smithfield will can enforce that with parking tickets, I believe. Is that?
If the streets are ours. If they're not ours, if they're part of the HOA requirement, then with private property, we can't enforce parking there.
Okay.
Well, these would be town streets.
If they're town streets and there's ordinances that the city council approves, then we can enforce those.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up is, I know 500 feet seems like a long way, but the people moving into this are going to be buying these knowing that that is the rule. And I feel that if it's enforced from the start, perhaps that may not be an issue. I know I'd hate to come out and get a $50 ticket or whatever the case may be. After about the second time, they'd put an end to it, pretty sure. So, not so much concerned with that. But I did have a question for you, Stephen. You mentioned the sidewalks. They had them on both sides of the street, and you had proposed a multi-use trail.
So within the development, it's sidewalks on both sides of the residential streets. Along Mallard Road, we're requesting that, there's sidewalks required wherever the development is on Mallard Road. In some cases, it's on both sides. In some areas, it's on one side. So the pedestrian plan is showing one side of Mallard Road having a multi-use trail, and the other side having a sidewalk. So where one is required, I think it's on, I don't remember which side is which, but on one side would be a multipurpose trail as opposed to a sidewalk on Mallard Road.
For those that don't know, what's the difference?
One is an 8-foot bituminous trail as opposed to a 5-foot wide sidewalk, concrete sidewalk. So kind of different users. If someone's going to be doing more distance biking, they'd probably take the trail as opposed to a sidewalk. Sometimes sidewalks, if they're used for pedestrians, it can be a conflict with bikers. So it provides more options. And the PED plan's envisioning some of these routes to have a trail where you might have more long-distance riders.
Okay. And the 17th condition that you had recommended, that is consistent with what the developer was hoping for?
Right,
Okay. That way he can move forward with his plans?
correct.
Gotcha. Anything else from council at this point?
What was the, Stephen, on the Marshall Road side, there's no berm required? Is it going to be natural area?
Along, I can go back to this picture here. Got the master plan. So you can see on Mallard Road, in many areas, you'll see double-fronted lots, meaning they have the buildings face a local street within the development. On the back side of the development, on the back side of the units, they face the highway.
Yeah.
Such as, kind of right in here, you see all those
I'm talking about the far left.
down here?
No, far left, up, right in that area where we're cutting off where they can't have lateral entry.
Off-street.
What is going to be the buffer between?
Talking about right here?
Yeah, between the existing homes and this new
Yeah,
development.
they're going to have to provide a, whatever the code requires for buffer in that area. It's residential and townhouses, so I think it's a Class B buffer. Of course, none of the buffers are necessarily shown on this master plan, given the level of detail, but they've indicated they're going to buffer the edges. Okay.
Anything else?
On page 32 of your handout, your townhouses, it says garages, you have one-car garage. And then it says off-street parking is 2 spaces. Is that 2 spaces in front of this unit or somewhere else?
One in the garage, one in the driveway, and then there's some additional overflow parking.
Okay, so it's 2 per unit then?
And as you know, a lot of times those garages end up being storage lockers, so something to
I just
consider.
want to make sure there's one on the pad and one in the garage. Okay.
Anything else for now? All right, is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak on this matter? If you would, please state your name for the clerk.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Dunn and members of council, I would like to begin by apologizing for the mask. It is simply not an option for me this evening to take that off. But I'm Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group, 421 Fayetteville Street in Raleigh. I just had a few notes I wanted to share with you about this request. First being that I'm not here alone. I'm here with the team, including Ray Perkins and Connie Johnson, representing NRP Ventures, the applicant, as well as members of the engineering team who can answer some of the more detailed questions that you may have. A project of this size can bring the critical mass needed to bring in the infrastructure needed to open this portion of the town. It will kickstart the necessary water and sewer infrastructure and permit the town to grow in a compact way into this expansion area. It will bring a few additional benefits, including the pedestrian facility along Mallard, the property tax revenue associated with more than 2,000 new households, as well as badly needed housing due to employment growth in the area, the need to house employees, and the need for housing to attract employers. In this case, the proposal to do this in a master planned and compact way allows for several benefits to the town, including a reduced environmental impact and a reduced impact on the city budget as well, because those city services that are needed are able to be focused in a concentrated area rather than spread out throughout the town. Another goal of the compact development is to provide a village feel for residents. And you heard this a little bit when we talked about the street widths and whether there's a need for a hierarchy of streets. All the streets proposed here are the narrowest version, and that is by design, to bring those large widths down, which also serves as a traffic calming measure. You find that drivers will not get up to speed on a narrower street, and that's all part of the goal here in creating that village feel. I'd like to note that we support and we accept all of the planning board's recommended conditions. So we feel that those were well thought out and helpful to the project. The only other piece I wanted to address that I heard this evening was that the size, as Mr. Wensman pointed out, the size of this project makes it very difficult to provide the level of design you may be used to seeing for a smaller project at this phase. And we did look into it. We understand that for a project of this size, to design to that level would involve an $8 to $10 million investment prior to ever having an entitlement to ensure that that investment can be used. So that is the barrier to that this evening. And we feel that all of the issues that come up with that situation have been addressed through the extensive zoning conditions proposed and supported. So as a general matter, we have allowed the strong existing controls of the UDO to govern the future development of the site, seeking some limited variability as well to support that low speed and compact development style in order to allow both the preservation of much of the site as well as the future attainability of the housing for area workers and families, and without sacrificing the quality of the features, the amenities, or the design. I and my team look forward to hearing your comments and questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Molly, I do have your slide presentation if you want to refer to anything on it.
Thank you, Mr. Wensman. I just wanted to have that available in case there are questions. I do have some images that may be helpful in answering a question, but Mr. Wensman's presentation was quite thorough.
Are there any questions for her at this time?
Mayor Pro Tem, I do have a question. Molly, thank you for coming tonight. You made a statement that this is benefit to the town by developing in a compact way.
Yeah.
Please explain to me how putting a house 5 foot apart versus 10 foot apart is benefiting the town. I don't
Sure.
understand.
Yeah, no, on the scale of this project, there are many different features that contribute to that compact development. And it's sort of allocated among different features. In this case, it's the street widths, it's the lot sizes and those setbacks, and it really sort of just brings everything closer together.
I don't have any more questions.
Anyone else have any questions relating to this? For Molly or Stephen? If not, I'll entertain a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? What is the recommendation of the board?
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll make a motion to move to approval of zoning map amendment CZ-22-02, 17 conditions finding it consistent with the Town of Smithfield Comprehensive Growth Management Plan is hereby amended and other adopted plans, and that the amendment is reasonable and in the public interest. Madam Clerk, do I need to read the 17, or is that sufficient?
All right, thank you, Councilman Wood.
Second.
All All right, have a motion and a second.
Now, does that include all the conditions that they've presented and the things that he's edited?
The 17 that he presented in his slide. On page,
Yeah, I included that in my motion. 17 gives it conditions. 47.
45 through 48
Yep.
in Stephen's slide.
Do I need to put that in the motion?
It didn't address the 5-foot parking thing.
The conditions right now
Number
codify the
14
500
is
feet.
within 500 foot.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's a long way. I mean, I'm sure you want to carry your groceries in for 500 feet. but- Carry on.
Did we have a second on that? Sloan?
Second.
All right. Motion and a second. If there's not any discussion, call for vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3 to 3? Motion fails.
It's 3-3?
Is that what it is, Shannon?
Yes.
Don't you need to make a decision?
I already voted.
Oh, you did vote.
I
I'm
could-
sorry.
yeah.
Excuse me.
All right.
Mayor Pro Tem, could I ask we take a brief recess to come back to this agenda that we're working on? I mean, if y'all don't want to, it's fine, but I just think it's appropriate.
I do too.
It's up to you if you want to take a recess.
Yes, I'm good with that. 5-10 minute recess?
5-minute recess.
5-minute
please.
recess.
Okay.
They just cracked it all two pieces.
At this time, I'll call the meeting back to order. We were still trying to discuss CZ 22-02. Is there any further discussion within the council on this zoning request?
No discussion, just see if
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion concerning CZ 22-02 at this time?
Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to go back to the, well, hold on just a second. Maybe we don't need to do that. Can you put the conditions back up for the record, please?
I do have a question on material while he's thinking. The cul-de-sacs have been revised to meet they were at one time smaller, but they have been revised. Is that correct?
There's a condition that they be revised
Okay.
to meet code requirements, because some of them were wide, almost looking like a parking lot.
Okay.
We just want to make sure they meet code requirements. We don't have that level of detail to know what's being proposed.
And the developer's okay with all those conditions, which you
Yes.
stated earlier. Yes, ma'am.
think some of us have a lot of heartburn with number 14. Overflow parking 500 foot. Anything could be addressed on that?
You asking me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, the council can change that number from 500 to something that they feel is more appropriate. Staff had recommended 400 as being a number because it's already in the code, if you think that's an appropriate number, 400 feet.
Now, going
The
back
developer would
her-
have to amend their plans to accommodate if you conditionalize it that way.
Now, going back to her, is that gonna? That's what now?
They're amenable to a change.
Councilman Scott?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion that is exactly the same as Councilman Wood's motion, with the exception of number 14 condition would be set back to 400. And I also would put in my motion that we do the front setback to 30 feet. That's adding 5 feet. That's what our current plan says. And that's because of parking.
Currently, the front setback is proposed at 25, is that correct?
That's correct, for the townhouses and the single family.
Stephen, what is the,
Code?
what is the current code?
I'll refer you to your agenda packet 107.
R8 standard is 30 feet.
And what have we approved in the
They're
past?
approved, they're requesting 25.
Have we approved 25 before?
We have. I think East River was 20. Floyd Landing, I believe they went to, can't remember which one it was. One of them went to 35 feet, so you could get 3 cars in the driveway.
That's 25 be enough for a long car or something, a big truck in the driveway?
25 feet should be big enough for a big truck.
What's that?
25 should be deep enough for one big truck.
And not hang out in the street?
Hmm?
And not hang out in the street?
And not hang out into the sidewalk, yes.
Mayor, I have a motion now, if it gets a second. But if not, that's fine.
Can you repeat your motion? It's been a little bit since.
The only thing I
30.
changed was 400 feet for the parking, for the overflow, and asked them to go consider the 30-foot front setback, which is at R8 zoning and what we're currently there.
So that'd be a condition number 18, that the front setbacks be 30 feet, or changing the deviation chart, number 1, to be 30. That's probably a better place to do it.
In other words, meet our zone requirement.
Yeah, so you would strike the 25-foot setbacks, wherever that is.
Correct.
Yeah, the third one, 25 would be 30.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we'll move on to citizens' comments. If anyone wishing to speak on a matter at this time, please come forward and give your name to the clerk.
Yeah, I understand.
Hello, my name is Jacqueline Dednam Watson.
Never say today. You gotta make it hard.
I would like to personally congratulate Councilman Marlon Lee on his reelection to the seat. You are a very hard worker for our district, and please know that your work does not go unknown. I've sat here patiently this evening, and I listened about all the new developments in the Smithville area, but my concerns are about a well-established neighborhood, the Belmont community, Councilman Marlon Lee's district. I have a property, 308 Martin Luther King. I have a property to the left of my property that used to belong to the Diggs family. No one knows who this property belongs to now, but it is a nuisance. It is an eyesore. Last year, I complained to Councilman Lee, and he was able to get the town of Smithfield to come and clean the property. I mean, you can't even hardly see the house for the weeds. The shrubbery has really, really grown, and it's gotten thicker. I have a brick fence that divides my property from the Diggs property, and now with the shrubbery growing again, I'm fearing that the thick shrubbery is gonna knock over my brick fence, and I'm gonna be totally responsible for the repairs. I have a property directly behind my property that's, again, an eyesore. It should be condemned, in my opinion. The back porch is just full of vines. You can't even see the door. You can't even see the window. And I was working on my property on Saturday, and here comes a black snake from over there. I mean, I pay my taxes, and I don't think I'm getting what I'm paying for.
Do you know the address of those properties, ma'am?
The Diggs property, I think, is 306 Martin Luther King, but the property directly behind my property is Fuller Street, but there is no known address. Now, Councilman Lee did a great job last year, got the town of Smithfield to come and clean the property, but that's only once a year. And that's not fair to the citizens that live in that community, that make sure their yards are presentable, that keep their homes up. And I just don't understand why nobody knows who owned this property.
Thank you. I'll let Mr. Manager handle that for you.
Yeah.
And one more thought. Councilman Lee was saying, you know, I remember, I grew up in the Belmont community, but I remember back in the day when people didn't cut their grass, keep their yards up, they would come around and put a sign in the yard and saying, you know, you got 2 weeks to do it. If you don't do it, the town of Smithfield will be responsible, and it will be added onto your property taxes. What happened to that?
I don't think that's totally accurate. It was never added onto their property taxes.
Well, that's what the note said, because I read it myself.
They get fined for that, and we seek reimbursement from them, and we can file a lawsuit. That's what Mr. Carter would do to get that money back from them. So they would have to pay the lawsuit fees plus the fine, plus whatever cost us to mow the place. So that is the way that's handled, and that's the way it's still handled today.
Okay.
The sign doesn't necessarily go up in the yard, but the council has a list of a lot of residences. I haven't had a chance to look to see if yours is on there. I'll check as soon as this meeting's over.
Please.
But if it's not, it'll be on there tomorrow after we take a look.
Please. And thank you all so very much.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Thank you for coming tonight, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
I know the property.
If not, I will entertain a motion.
Is it on there? Okay.
A second to move on to the consent agenda as amended.
So moved, Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are now to business item ANX 22-01, Floyd Landing Holdings LLC. Submitted a petition for voluntary contiguous annexation of 96.82 acres into the town of Smithfield. And Stephen is not quite here, so, an adoption of resolution number 699, 08-2022. Mr. Winsman,
Yes, sir. I was giving a business card away, sorry.
business item number 1.
Sure. Floyd's Landing, as you know, they've got preliminary plat approval, and right now we're reviewing the construction plans. They're not approved yet, but this is the first step in a annexation petition, and it's essentially just a request for the clerk to review the sufficiency of the petition. The next phase would be, if she finds it sufficient, the council would order a public hearing, and then the third step would be the council then votes on whether or not to accept the petition. So this is the first out of a three-step process, and essentially just asking Shannon here to review the petition. Any questions?
Questions from the council? None, I'll entertain a motion in a second to approve, deny, or table the petition and resolution number 699.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 699, directing the clerk to investigate a petition received under General Statute 160A-31.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, we'll move on to business item number 2, consideration request for approval for 2 contracts with Santec for engineering design of pump station number 1 and with Wooten Company for engineering and design and improvements at pump station 11. Mr. Creedle.
Thank you. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here to request approval of 2 qualified engineering consulting firms to design the already approved sewer projects, which are funded by the state appropriated funds delegated through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. As you may recall, in the approved current state budget, funds were designated for certain specific utility projects. Of these projects, the town of Smithfield was appropriated specific funds to improve portions of the town's sanitary sewer system. In fact, the town was appropriated funds for 3 different projects. One project is a coordination and assistance with a private development. The other 2 projects have the goal to open up sewer capacity for town development. The NCDEQ issued a letter of intent to fund on March 9, 2022. For the 2 projects, the town would have responsibility for design and construction. Project 1 actually has 2 separate but related phases. The first phase is to increase the size of the wet well at the pump station number 1, which is across the river from Little Brown Jug, which will increase pump station storage. The second phase is to extend the outlet from its current tie-in position all the way to the county treatment plant. Together, these 2 actions will help open up West Smithfield and take volume away off the line along the river, which is considered full, and is currently acting as one of our roadblocks in development. Project 2 will deliver a similar outcome for pump station number 11, which is located on Mallard Road. It will help open up the area east of I-95 for whatever development may occur. In order to accomplish these goals, the town needed to acquire design assistance for these projects. In accordance with state law, we advertised for design assistance on April 25th. We received 2 submittals from qualified firms on May 5th. Each design firm was judged to be well qualified. As such, it is proposed that each company should be awarded one of the projects for design. In this case, staff is proposing Stantec be awarded design assistance for project number 1, since they performed the preliminary survey work last December. So staff is requesting that council approve both design firms to provide engineering design services for these 2 projects and to authorize the town manager to execute the contracts for such services, provided that those services are within the approved NCDEQ budget for each project. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ted. Any questions for Ted at this time? All right, what is the pleasure of the board to move forward with this, or?
Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion, we approve both of these requests.
Second.
Both pump stations is what I'm saying.
In a second, all in favor? All right, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Question, Mr. Credo, before you step away. The email that we received today, was that a different?
Yes, that is a different project. That is the EDA project that we came back to council twice. We had to change our match amounts.
I remember.
Yeah, and we'll be using money that we saved from the Durwood Stevenson water line to pay for that project.
I just got them confused, I'm
That's,
sorry.
yeah, sewer outfall line back by Roseman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. All right, business item 3, Lawrence. This is a bid award in the amount of $181,275.70 to Tripp Brothers for the 2021-2022 street resurfacing project. Lawrence?
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilman, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. On May the 12th, we had a bid opening for the street resurfacing project for 21 and 22. Out of the 14 bid packages, we received 5. That was ST Wooten, that was Garris, Daniel Construction, Tripp Brothers, and also Ralph Hodges Construction Company. And initially, the bid was out for 14 streets. Their streets were included were Maple Drive, McCullough Street at the beginning of 400 and 500 block, Bridge Street, Hancock Street at 900 block, Runnymede Place, North Street 400 block, North Street 900 block, East Street 700 block, Goldsboro Road 1100 block, Harris 1000 block, and East Holding Street, and also the Outlet Center Drive. We did do a bid for those packages, and we did receive a bid of, I can go through the bid process and what happened. I didn't realize it was going to be as much as it was as far as the budget, what they projected. But ST Wooten was $881,000. Garris Paving was $599,904.25. Daniel Construction was $608,264.43. Tripp Brothers were $547,308.10. And Ralph Hodges was $714,308.81. Now, like I said, these were all the combined streets. I did not realize that was going to come up over our budget. So what we had to do was scale back to fit the power bill budget that we had. The power bill budget that we had was $194,183.15. So we had to scale that back. So I am asking to complete the outlet center, all because we had 25 work orders that were basically stating that the potholes were really bad. I can tell you, we've had from the police department call us out about that particular area. We've had citizens complain. We've had outer towners complain. People from out of state complain about it. And like I said, we received 24 work orders from year 2000 and 2020. And so we've been receiving those complaints. But also, it is to the council's agenda, if you wish to not to do the outlet, we can also look at the recommended other streets that maybe need to be paved. If you want to do that, I do recommend the 8 streets that is on this list, and those are East Street, McCullough Street, McCullers, Hancock, North Bridge Street, North Street from 900 block to 1,000 block, and Holden Street. And that is a total of $183,640.73.
Is there any way we could get that? I don't think we have that tonight.
No, you don't have
Could
that.
we-
And
Could you get that data to us?
Sure.
Mayor Pro Tem, I have some concerns about this. We've addressed it in different ways. We do have another budget meeting. I know this is for this year, but I feel like it would be appropriate for us to discuss this on our next meeting, if that's possible. Because
We're going to recess. You can table this to the 27th meeting.
But I think we need to have that data. We have the opportunity to do something a little bigger than just one half a mile of street.
Okay, yeah.
And I understand the prices increase. I talked to Mike. It's unbelievable, but we gotta address it. Some of our neighborhoods, you've mentioned several of the
Yes.
names. I know Mr. Drexler's been out and resurveyed that, but we really need to look at this a little bit bigger, I think, perhaps. I'll make a motion, we table this until our reconvened session on the 27th.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
All right.
And I will present those numbers to you.
I had one question.
Mm-hmm.
So if this was approved, you would have went ahead and if it was completed, you'd build it out, or would that have been encumbered to next, because we're coming up on July?
It would have gone into effect immediately, and we would
Yeah, but
have
if the
taken a
work
P-
wasn't complete,
Would have taken a purchase order out tomorrow.
Okay.
And that money would have been carried over and paid for out of this budget, but it would have been paid in August or whenever the road was done.
I see, okay. That's understood, thank you.
So as long as the contract was signed, that would have been the
That would have been in this budget, yes.
But how many streets did you say we could get for the same amount? You
We
said
can
9
get-
streets out of 14? Is that
We
what
can
you
get
said?
8 streets out of, instead of that one street, we can get 8 streets.
Well, they're not total streets, so some portions.
Oh, yeah, they're total portions of the streets, blocks.
They
Yeah.
They blocks. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Davis? Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Got it.
And last, we have consideration request to adopt year-end budget amendments and encumbrances.
You want me to address that, Greg?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, go ahead.
If it pleases council, we would ask that the year-end budget amendments and encumbrances be tabled or moved and presented at the June 27th meeting. This would allow more time for actual budget numbers, such as Lawrence's, for instance, and less estimating and forecasting. So we'll have a slightly clearer picture, given an additional 2 or 3 weeks of accounts payable, and we will bring these items to you at the June 27th meeting.
Sounds good.
So we're just removing it from the,
It would just, we would need a motion to
Recess it.
table it, same as you just made for the other.
so move, clerk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good. At this point, moving on to council members' comment.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll be very brief. I know we've been working in the budget workshop, and we've had lots of discussions. And I just wanted to thank the manager and department heads for the work they're doing. One of the topics that we brought up was the change in the salaries for our employees, and I still stand firm that that's the right thing to do. We've got to be marketable, comparable locally. I just want to mention that tonight. And I wanted to point out to the council that the manager has got those numbers balanced. You know, they're funded, but that doesn't mean that all that has to be spent. It's based on the data they bring us back. Hopefully, this will give us a chance to fix some major problems with our payroll in regards to our employees' compensation. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is important because, and I wanted to thank Mr. Powell for bringing this forward, but he provided us an updated copy of the Smithfield Police Department vehicle take-home policy. and I think this is important for us to read, and we really need to discuss this. This project was, and Captain Shepard's not here, but Grady has said, now they worked hard on this a few years ago, and with our fleet, it was going to be very expensive. Mr. Powell, correct me if I'm wrong, looking at the data, with the purchases of the cars that we have the ability to implement a take-home car program for our police officers. Is that correct, Mr. Powell? So having said that, I'd just like to ask the council to consider that. Again, we've got to be competitive. Our police department is threatened by recruiters from other places, and this is one of the big commodities that seems to be something that needs to be addressed. But that's all I have to say, and I just want to thank the staff for what y'all done.
I'll be very brief, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman David Stevens already left. I was hoping he would stick around, but he bolted like he was on The Price is Right or something being called down. But
You got the key left.
yeah, I just wanted to publicly thank him for his service. He's brought a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, and a common demeanor when this council needed it at times. And he'll be sorely missed. I think he's left it in good hands, though, with Councilman Stevens again over there, Sloan Stevens. But David's been a good friend of mine for many, many years, and he's done just a hell of a job, I think, as a councilman. And I just want to publicly thank him for that. And this is not an easy job. We don't do it for the pay. We do it because we love the town. I think David truly loves the town, so I could probably speak that for most of our employees. So, but again, thank you to David Stevens for his service.
I might not be brief. School is out, so I can sleep late tomorrow. I don't even care.
Hit at 10 o'clock now, Councilman Lee.
I don't even care. School is out. I can get up at 12 o'clock tomorrow. No, but anyway, I'm just going to kind of piggyback to pretty much what Councilman Scott said. And, definitely over the last couple of weeks, the police department, they've been in some serious situations, and a lot of it definitely, hit home to East Smithfield, Belmont, with the situation of the young man who came up from Fayetteville, blase, and I know as understaffed that they are, they work hard along with some other agencies. And, I just commend them. Every time I see them on the road, sometimes I'll stop the police officer. I'll pull them over. But, I do understand how important it is, that we take care of our fire and, safety officers or whatever. And, then the second incident, that was my cousin that got stabbed. And, that really hit home, just to get a call from a Clayton police officer that a Smithfield police officer had been stabbed, and to what extent, I didn't know. I had to call his mom. I know Chief Powell and them, they was trying to reach out. But, it's serious. We adding, more developments or whatever. So, and I commend the police officers that are staying. Of course, when they got here, they knew what the salaries were and everything. But, it just really thought to me that the ones that are still here, they're out, protecting us. And, for some of these situations, you can't train for this stuff. But, just to let them know, and just like everybody else, Parks and Rec, Public Works, everybody else, to feel appreciated. But, we got to really dig down, dig deep, while we can. We're not in a bad financial situation. And, we just gotta take care of our people, because if not, some other folks are gonna be ready to scoop them up. So, as we do finish out the budget or whatever, I hope we can, take care of everybody, So, that's the first 5 minutes. Let me see. No, I'm done. That's all I gotta say.
Anybody else? No. I just want to welcome Sloan to your first official full meeting. The last one was a layup.
Take a breath now.
Last one's a layup. You didn't have to do anything.
Yeah,
This one you
yeah.
had to, so welcome. Look forward to the next
Thank y'all for having me. I'm
2 years at least.
getting thrown right in the middle of the washing machine, so glad to be here and learn something new every minute up here.
Glad you're here. Nothing else, Mr. Manager?
Just have a few things, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Want to remind everybody that we have the July 4th celebration downtown this year. It'll actually be on July 3rd. So please come out and spend your time downtown. Work with the merchants down there, enjoy yourselves, enjoy the fireworks. With that, because of July 4th, I want to make a reminder to everyone that our July meeting will actually be pushed back 1 week. Instead of being on July 5th, it'll be on July 12th at 7 o'clock because of the July 4th holiday. So please make sure you have your calendars marked for that, because there will be no dinner served on that night.
Mr. Manager, I'm sorry, what do we ever decide about the August meeting? Is there gonna be a national night out, or, I mean, I know.
So far, the August meeting has not changed. And I don't think the council has made any motions or anything to change that meeting. Is that right?
I know we
thought the
moved it in
mayor-
the past.
Yeah, he brought
We,
that
we,
up.
we have.
Oh, we brought it up. I was just wondering, is there still gonna be a national night out?
Yes, that, we're still having it.
So at some point, I mean, it's June, I mean, I think we should change it. I mean, we're gonna
The
wait.
change would have to come from the council.
What is the date on that?
I guess another dual poll would
Is
figure
it
it out.
August?
Let me look.
August 9th?
That's the,
That's the second Tuesday.
Yeah,
First
it's
Tuesday.
August 2nd.
August 6th? Yeah, it's the first Tuesday.
So you could easily move the meeting to the 9th or the 3rd or whatever you chose to do.
Perhaps we could discuss that when the mayor's back. He had some concerns about that, I believe. I
We
mean,
here tonight, so, yeah, we can,
okay, we'll fix it.
you know what I'm saying?
Well, the 3rd,
well, in theory, I'll be together on the 27th also.
Yeah, we have time to change it.
That's what I was talking about.
yeah.
I ain't gonna be here that night, so.
And also the Juneteenth celebration on June 18th, as Councilman Lee mentioned earlier. Just want to remind everyone about that, too.
Got a couple more things.
Councilman, you won't be there the 27th.
Okay, we good. Go ahead, you go.
National Night was.
I wanted to bring the attention, Councilman Scott touched on it briefly. The town did receive a notice of a awarded grant tonight. It's for a sewer outfall line, which is, kind of goes behind Rose Manor. It's almost a $3.8 million project. It's a Economic Development Administration grant. The investment of EDA is $2.7 million, with the balance being funded by the town. And that comes as a direct, I guess, result of the county providing us with a grant for a similar amount of our match to help us with the completion of the Durwood-Stevenson water line. So want to thank them for their assistance with that. It allowed us to leverage that money and receive this $3.8 million grant to further development out in West Smithfield along that corridor. Lastly, the young lady that was here with the problems on Martin Luther King, as I look at the report, I want to make sure 306 Martin Luther King Drive is under enforcement at this time. So we're in the process of dealing with that property. I'm not sure of the address of the other property, so we will definitely research that tomorrow and make whatever adjustments we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. At this time, we need to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A5.
So moved, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Second. All in favor? Aye.